Bring pre-delay up. All right, let's see. Hey, Grim, how are you? Phone here so you get tuned up. Let's see. Let's go let Facebook know. I'm doing okay. Doing okay. My head feels a little funky because of got my sinuses doing something weird for the last few days. Head feels like a little floaty. It's probably gonna have to go get an antibiotic or something. Yeah, a little sharp. Hey, Facade, what's up? How are you? A little noise from the phone. I don't think our stream could even handle that many people. It'd probably just shut down immediately. So that's basically in at other frequencies and on other instruments, it's called a ghost tone. It can happen with either as a byproduct of the instrument itself, or in some cases the actual speaker. Some speakers are a little more prone to wolf tones, but the violin and certain other instruments were inclined to creating this kind of weird, harsh overtone at a specific adjustment or intonation of the fifth interval. Like we can't really get it or recreate it exactly on this. Uh, but especially on some older instrument designs, you can still kind of hear it. Your best bet is to find somebody playing like a Baroque violin, or even some of the woodwinds could produce it, um, or an equivalent of it anyway. Find somebody playing one of those on YouTube and demonstrating it. It's just kind of like almost like a multiphonic type effect. But most modern instruments aren't going to be able to produce it without manipulation. But you will find sometimes like certain speakers and certain amplifier designs and stuff like that can create kind of similar effects at different frequencies and with specific intervals. My nails are a little bit too long for bass actually, because we've been playing so much of that. I've been playing so much of that classical guitar. I let my nails grow out a little bit, so now you can hear a little bit of click on the attack of the string. don't like these taper core strings. I put a set of Ken Smith taper core strings on this bass, and the taper core has just like totally killed the definition of the low B string, which is really strange. Seems like on certain bridges and certain bass designs the taper cores work great, and then on others they don't work at all. But this went from having a pretty well defined, not like a huge low B, but a pretty well defined one where you could hear each note clearly, to having one that's almost all overtone. Especially as we start to move up the fingerboard, we hear way more overtone than we do fundamental. Rules for what's considered a song? I mean, not really. Like a ton of grindcore and whatever type bands have songs that are like a second long. You know, as well as stuff like John Cage, 433, which is, 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, essentially. Or, well, non-playing. It's not actually silence, which is kind of the point. Yeah, we do a bass stream every now and then, just to mix things up. How are you doing, though? I mean, the way genres, hard definitions of genres, for the most part, like that's a much more kind of contemporary thing, which I think has been aided very much by the internet. It certainly happened to an extent beforehand. Broadly speaking, it tends to kind of either result or be a product of the particular culture that has produced the genre, sort of in microcosm, or occasionally genres wind up getting sort of named and defined by, music critics or people sort of external to it attempting to describe it. Yet is the key word, right? See if the switch is still going to misbehave. Yep. I'm just going to have to replace that switch. Gets worse every time. Let's dial in a hair more reverb. Kind of yes and no. I mean, sometimes it's the result of smashing a million different genres together, or completely disparate genres together. Sometimes it's the complete rejection of them. Sometimes it's just doing whatever the heck you want and not really caring if anybody else cares. This D string is giving me grief. Let's adjust the A. Giving me grief. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's a single one true way, true capital T way to make art capital A. I mean, there have been plenty of people that have made great art in the pursuit of just trying to get by, just trying to play a gig and make some money to buy some food. I mean, heck, even Bach was doing the majority of his work, at the behest of wealthy benefactors. You were, feeding his 12,000 children, who were all also named Johann. I think Dark Souls would classify, or would qualify as a form of art. It. I mean, again, it was a commercial product, but was kind of pursued with a different perspective. With something of a different approach than most video games would be, even from Software's other games, which could be pretty weird and unusual. I think maybe it's kind of interesting to compare and contrast that to something like Dark Souls 2, which I think lacks a little bit of what 1 had, or what Demon Souls had even. It has its own strengths and weaknesses, but as a work of art, I think it doesn't hold up to Dark Souls 1. I don't think 3 does either, though. But you can see it in some of the like the enemy design as well, because weren't the guys that directed 2 guys that worked on Monster Hunter? You sort of see like a great deal of the aesthetic of like the character and enemy design and stuff like that feels more cartoonish, and not really. It doesn't really maintain the kind of thematic coherence that Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls had. They don't really feel like they're part of the same world. And I don't mean like literal same world. I mean the same world artistically. Gosh, that's really bad. That intonation is terrible. I think it's getting worse too as these strings get old. These strings are probably about a year and a half old, maybe. But they don't have tons of hours on them. Yeah, see, the gameplay is great to me. Like, uh, it's relatively like mechanically simple in terms of like each individual sort of movement, but it's a lot more patient. It involves a lot more kind of understanding the timing. You know, you don't do insane combos or button mashing sequences or anything like that, but you have to appreciate how to time your swings and your movements and your when to attack and when to dodge or to block. And there's a million different ways to build out of those simple things. Well, the movement controls are the way that they are to kind of make you think, to make you take your time with the environments and the encounters instead of just trying to blast through everything. Definitely don't play it with keyboard and mouse. It even on the PC port, it is much much better to play with the controller. Ah, there we go. I think we need more reverb for this. Well, I mean, like every game, though, ultimately, when you're engaging with enemies or the environment in any way, you're fighting or working with or against the controls in one way or another. Well, I mean, you are working against them. You're working with and against them at different times, depending on what they're designed to do. You know, Dark Souls is not supposed to, especially the first one. In Demon Souls before that are not supposed to feel like fast and fluid attacking games in the same way that a Devil May Cry or something would. You know, they're meant to feel very methodical and patient until you master them. Once you master them, then you can get a lot more fast and play a lot more aggressively, depending on the type of build that you're using. But I mean, it is intentionally very much designed for you to take your time, work out like, okay, this is when I should swing, this is when I should block. Well, I need to learn how to turn this way. I need to learn how to manipulate the camera this way. That's like all part of the experience. It's very different from a lot of other games that were popular at the time. You know, obviously a lot of stuff has kind of copied it now. pedals are going to play. Reverb pedal doesn't like this E around here. Oh, it's not for no reason. It's because you didn't take enough time to like stop and look around and see what was coming up. Man, everybody and their brother is doing that Among Us now. I haven't even played that. Let's turn. It's not too easy to overload here. Yeah, some kind of, it's like, you know, like a mystery type game, like you're trying to figure out who's the murderer or who's the whatever. All right. So, what should we play? Who's got bass tunes? I'm looking pretty forward to Cyberpunk. I really enjoyed Witcher 3. Witcher 2 was pretty good with, you know, in spite of the jank. Witcher 1 was kind of, I thought was kind of unplayable, but that was also way back, way back in the day. That would be an example of really bad controls. Really, truly bad controls. Yeah, it depends on what it is. Where's that clipping coming from? Let me see something. I'm going to bypass the effects loop here and see if we still get that clip. This reverb pedal can be picky about input signals. No, still getting a little from somewhere. Let's try a different bass and see if we still get that little bit of clipping. So it could be this switch that was going bad on the bass. Causing a problem. Let's see. All right, let's see. All right, well, so far it's pretty much just percussive noises. There's a little bit of a pad that starts to come in there about 2 minutes in, basically, which is just little chords, like little small chords kind of fading up underneath everything. Let me go, just get this one, it's close on hand. This is probably heavier than I'll want to use for long, though. This bass is kind of a beast. Yeah, it's pretty much just looping like drum machine and synth stuff. Uh, there's the drum machine that's looping your do 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 do, and it's got a filter that's slowly being swept over it. It has a low pass filter that's giving like the kick that really 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 low punch, that's making really deep. But then it's got one that's kind of slowly opening up. You could do it with hardware or software. Either way. If you go with hardware, though, you'll have to investigate the specs, a little more closely, because they'll have different limitations, different things they can and can't do at different price points. Why about hardware? Because hardware sounds different. Kind of like amps and guitars and pedals and stuff like that. A hardware drum machine will have a pretty unique sound. And the software, like even the most famous drum machines, there are software recreations of most of them, but they're never going to sound exactly the same, because they're emulations of the circuits, they're models of the circuits and sounds, but they don't have the actual chipsets inside producing the sounds in the same way. Oh yes. Nope, still clipping something somewhere. Let's just take these guys out of the loop. Yeah, must be it. I mean, once it's in the final mix, being able to tell if it's hardware or software is, next to impossible. But when you're in the room with it, that's a different thing. There's also a different experience when you're interfacing with it. Some people like to sit and actually turn knobs and adjust things and press buttons themselves. Other people don't care at all, and they just want to, click whatever they want, add it super easy in the software via the plugins. No? What if we're overdriving our volume pedal? That'd be weird. Let's try that. Let's bypass the volume pedal. And see if that fixes it. Microphone a little bit. Try a different cable. More process of elimination. Well, so I mean, there's some things that drummers, obviously just can't do. There are some pretty amazing drummers that can do lots and lots and lots of these really complex electronic and drum machine type sounds. But ultimately, there are things that just can't be done with a traditional drum kit and with a real person, really, some tempos and stuff like that. Sampling encompasses anything from simply like creating essentially a copy of a sound, like the actual frequency response of a particular sound, to sampling entire parts of tracks. And it's generally not theft in the majority of music that's released. It contains samples that are actual components of other songs. They do have to pay royalties or license the part that's sampled. At least in the US. Let's see, where's my other really long cable? it over to the amp. Let's see if it's over here. But a lot of like you can buy samplers or use sampling software. For instance, if you hear a particular sound, as in like timbre, the sound of a synthesizer or drum or guitar or anything, and you can actually sample that. Some synthesizers are based on that type of process. Oh man, it's all tangled up. That's not good. There's also sampling, as in like creating your own loops, you know, playing a particular chord or track and then recording, you know, sampling just a small chunk of that and then looping it back and playing it back in different ways. It's a really broad term. Really broad term. Where are you stuck? Ah, it's stuck underneath. Stuck underneath the subwoofer. Let's get the other red cable. If you ever see these cables, these Horizon cables that have this red plastic wrapping on them, don't buy them. They're perfectly good cables quality wise, but this stuff sticks to itself. So every single time you try to move the cable or unwrap it, it could just completely sticks to itself and takes 12 years to untangle. And if you try to walk across the floor, it sticks to the floor. I don't know what they were thinking, why they couldn't just use a regular case for the cable. But if changing cables doesn't fix it, then the alternatives are there's something wrong with the speaker cable, which is, I don't even know where my other speaker cable is or my other Neutrik cable is right now, which would be really annoying. Or there's something wrong with the amp or cab, which will be even more annoying, exponentially so. Finally, okay, we're untangled. Yeah, this is the Warmoth Gecko, so they all have the Gecko inlay on the neck, which I hate. I don't like the inlay at all. Like, the bass itself is great, but the inlay is dumb. I do not care for it. Do not care for it. Nope, that didn't fix it. Well, what is the freaking problem? It's like it's overdriving. But I'm not seeing any clipping at all on the meter. Not seeing any clipping. Which makes me think it's probably speaker cable. massive P bass. Go basically about as low output as we can get and see if it continues. There's my Fender strap. Good old troubleshooting. Yes, Warmoth Car Insurance. Actually a crossover venture. The Warmoth Geico bass. No, there it is. That's off. That's off. EQ's off. Let's change. See what input B does. Now I'm getting it on both inputs. Alright, well. So much for that. Until I discover what on earth that distortion is coming from. I'm gonna have to wrap bass up. We're gonna have to switch to guitar. Because that's not a good sound, and it seemed to be getting worse as time went on, which makes me worry about some kind of component failure. Yeah, 808s, man. I mean, the 808 is you know, probably the most legendary drum machine ever. They've gotten to where they bring a fortune. But you know, they have a sound, a very specific sound. All right, start switching the guitar gear on. R.I.P. bass. I'll have to change the title up too. The DI. Let me turn this down so it doesn't blast you guys. That plugged in. Get the effects loop hooked up here. Preamp connected back to the power amp. Alright, then you are going to go up here, this around here. What are we missing? What am I missing? This here. And then power for the boost. Now, what guitar should we play? Yeah, there's all kinds of weirdness with old hardware that's very, very difficult to emulate correctly. You know, plus there's also, I mean, just the sound of the hardware driving speakers in your room, which has a certain type of depth and response that's very difficult to kind of recreate in the same way, especially under your fingers if it's a type of instrument that you're actually playing and manipulating in real time. You're gonna wind this cable up, get it back out of the way. Wind this other cable up, get it out of the way. I know what guitar I'm going to get. I'm going to get one we don't get out on the stream much. Come on, cable. You want to go that way. Cable has memory. When you're winding cables, you'll sort of find they have their own particular way that they want to wrap. And you kind of need to let them, otherwise you risk damaging the cable. It depends on the amp. I mean, they're kind of broad archetypes of amps. You can separate them by, you know, the circuits that inspired them: Marshall type amps, Vox type amps, Hiwatt type amps, Fender type amps. Then within Fender type amps, you know, you have tweed Fenders, brown face Fenders, black face Fenders, silver face Fenders, you know, red knob Fenders, you know, then more contemporary stuff like the Hot Rod series from the 90s, on and on and on and on. I mean, they're totally different. Oranges and Fenders are totally different types of circuits, totally different EQs, totally different gain levels, you know, totally different tubes. You just have to get, you know, hands-on experience is the best way to actually sit down and try to play them and go like, okay, well, wait a minute, this, you know, these Fenders from 1963 to 1960, well, really, they persisted with those even with the early silver faces to about 1970, use these tubes and these speakers, and they have this kind of sound, and they behave this way at this volume level, etc. The EQs work this way, while, you know, a Marshall amp from the same time period is going to be a very different thing, and an Orange amp from the same time period is going to be a very different thing. It's just, you just got to get the experience somehow, you know. Go out to music stores and play and play and play, and go listen to YouTube videos, you know, if you don't have access to them in music stores, and catch them, you know, just kind of start figuring out like, okay, well, wait a minute, you know, all of these Marshall type amps that I'm playing have this particular bite in this particular frequency range. You know, if you turn them up, they distort this way, while if I turn a Fender amp up, it's going to distort in a different way. Oranges tend to have Baxandall tone stacks, which is pretty different. Like the way the treble, mid, and bass controls work, it's pretty different than it'll work on a Fender or a Marshall. And they tend to be a lot kind of furrier as you crank them up. Like their distorted sounds have a lot more kind of like woolly thickness to them. While Marshalls tend to be kind of, the older ones anyway, tend to be kind of aggressive and biting. While Hiwatts tend to stay really, really clean and edgy and bright. And Fenders depends entirely on which era of Fenders. The Tweed Fenders from the 50s tend to get kind of loose and dark and kind of raw sounding, while the Fenders from the 60s tend to be more kind of like bright and clean and don't really distort much until you crank them way up. Because Leo Fender thought distortion was a bad thing. And there's a million other archetypes, Mesa amps, and depending on the time period of Mesa, you get very different things. The Mark series are going to be really different from the rectifiers, which became more popular, which they came out with in the 90s. Yeah, the early Marshalls, the first Marshalls were essentially copies of the Fender Bassman circuit, but with different components because they couldn't get the same tubes and transformers in the UK as they could in the US. So he wound up making an amp that sounded different. Same basic circuit. And I mean, most of the Fender circuits came from the RCA tube manual, because RCA designed a bunch of circuits to get people to buy their tubes. And so Leo Fender took a lot of inspiration from that manual when designing amps. And Leo Fender only started making guitars in order to have something to sell his amps with. Kind of another amusing thing. But you'll find that they're kind of these broad archetypes, vintage Marshall type, 80s, 90s Marshall type, blackface Fenders, Tweed Fenders, brown Fenders, Hiwatts, and Oranges or Mad Amps. Mad Amp was the company that made Orange originally. Various other sort of archetypes. You just got to get your hands on them and or at least go find places where you can listen to them and start kind of thinking like, okay, well, this has this particular character I can hear running across this whole thing. You just got to listen. I mean, woolly is the word that I use to describe it. When you hear it, you'll have your own descriptor for it. Let's see. I'm going to get this guitar over here. Oh. Case is hard to get to. And I'll put the bass up behind me. Yeah, you'll have to, like, if you listen to the difference between like a Tweed Fender amp, go look up a video of like a Tweed Fender Champ that's been cranked up. And I think raw would be a pretty good description for that kind of sound quality. And then go listen to, like a mid-60s Fender Super Reverb or Deluxe Reverb, and it's a much more refined and a much less raw kind of sound. But these are just broad descriptors. You have to listen to them and use your own language to sort of understand them in your own head. They're also kind of relative to the amp archetype as well. So I would say something like a VHT, now known as Fryette amplifier, high gain amplifier, like the Ultra Lead would be much more raw sounding than something like a Mesa Boogie Mark IV or Mark V, which would be more kind of smooth sounding. Gunslinger time. Come on, get in there. There we go. Yeah, this guitar has an absolutely incredible neck. Um, like just the shape and the finish and everything on it. It makes it feel like you've been playing it, for 50 years. And to be fair, I believe this is a 1988, so it is getting pretty old. But to be a very shreddy looking guitar, the neck feels like really classic, really broken in. It's not super thin, it's not super flat. It's got pretty big frets, but just like everything about it, just fits your hand like a glove. Yeah, this is kind of like an iridescent magenta. Looks like the webcam's making it have a little more kind of blue than it does in real life. It's a little more reddish in the room. And I put these P94s in it. It had these ludicrously hot, like way too hot to ever use active Duncans in it when I got it. Like they would immediately cause your amp to overdrive. They ran on like 18 volts. I wish I could find a bar for it. This uses a pretty unique Goto made trim, which was only used for this year. I think it was called the Goto GE 1988T. And the only bar that I've found for sale is in the Netherlands, of all places, where Grimm's at. And the bar itself's not too expensive, but it's like $50 or $60 shipping. No, they weren't blackouts. They were Livewire metals, which were sort of, I guess, the predecessors to all the blackouts and stuff like that they make now. Repeat the stuff about the trim. So this is a Goto GE 1988T. The only one they make now is the 1996T. Which they're apparently slightly different and won't retrofit. But a shop in the Netherlands has like two of them, new old stock, like still in the original packaging on Reverb. Probably cut our highs a little bit. This guitar is a little bit brighter than the last one we were playing. Let me see if that's the same shop. That's the right model number, but we don't need a gold one, obviously. They had a black one. So that's the unit. That's the whole unit. I think that's the shop too. If it'll load, geez, it's taking forever. All right, let's see. Parts. Probably under guitar parts. So I don't see bridge parts or anything. All right, let's see. So it's this, the Goto F1B. Yeah, this is the same shop. The Goto F1B 5.5 millimeter arm for Floyd Roses in black. But yeah, so it's like $10 for the bar, but then $43 for shipping. Well, when you have, when you have enough of it and you go through enough of it, you just kind of, get sort of a compendium in your brain of what's what. And I like restoring stuff too. I like finding old things and fixing them up and finding all the parts. You're talking about the whole bridge unit itself. In that case, I mean, for a contemporary version of that, the new version of that, you'd pay maybe $130 or $140, something like that. But that particular one was only made for a couple years and used on a very small set of guitars. So if you have one of the guitars that needed it in that color, then you basically don't have any other options. You should look at what parts for vintage Gibsons and Fenders bring. The so-called the poker chip, the little treble, like rhythm and treble chip for a vintage Les Paul, especially one from the late 50s, will bring thousands of dollars on its own for just this little tiny plastic ring. No, they're not painted, they're plated. They're electroplated. So unless you have the ability to electroplate things yourself, then no. And you'd also have to find the same model and strip whatever finish was on it, was already plated on there, and then re-electroplate it, at which point you would have expended a great deal more time and money than just buying it. Yeah, Frets on the Net doesn't have them. That's usually the first place that I check. Oh yeah, we need to update the title because we're not doing bass. I mean, I'd like to. Ideally, I wouldn't really want to be into it for more than about $20. Yeah, that's what I can't figure out either, Graham. Like, I've shipped, small items of comparable size to Europe before, and the most it's ever been was like 20 something dollars. It's usually been less. It's usually been in like the $10 to $12 range. I see your comment up there. Yes, Snick is technically in the Netherlands. Where is it? In Friesland? Is that where Herenveen is? More random knowledge that comes from football teams. Just work the bridge with my palm. Like in an official sense, like UFC type stuff, or like bum fights? Ease a little bit sharp. Get. Let's get a little more low end. Let's start bringing the guitar back up in the DI too, or in the mic. Yeah, the bass amp or something, either the speaker cable with the bass amp or something started wigging out and clipping. So we wound up having to shift to guitar. Yeah, perhaps. I mean, they've had that bar, Graham. They've had that bar for sale for years. I mean, I've had it on my watch list for years. So you think they would be pleased to sell it and ship it for something reasonable just to be rid of it. But then again, maybe not. I've also run into plenty of vendors online who are perfectly happy to sit on something for eternity. All right, well, what songs you guys got? What should we do? This guitar is a really loud switch. Huh, wonder why I didn't get a ding from Discord. All right. All right, so probably want both pickups. Alright, let's get a little less delay. We don't need that much. Just maybe a little slap back. Probably bring the level down to here. Yeah, it looks good on the meters. All right, so let's see. Let's update our title. I've heard things. Of course, my ancestors were Dutch as well, but they came here a very long time ago, so maybe I can't talk. So that little clavichord part we'll play on guitar, because the guitar is probably doubling. You can't quite hear it. Boom. Right. So what I'm doing is I'm taking like a bar chord up here. We're in the key of, strictly we're in the key of F, but we're really treating C like the root, like a C mixolydian sort of sound for this intro here. So imagine like a C bar chord up here at the 8th fret. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer on from just like a flat bar into the middle finger in that C bar chord. Right? Then I'm going to come up to the 10th fret on the B and G strings at least. You could throw in the D string too and it wouldn't hurt anything. Right? Ba, 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 ba. And I'm using hybrid picking for it. Right? Then down a whole step, same thing. Then all the way down to F at the 1st fret, same thing. Right, then at the end, when we get back to the C, instead of coming back to here, we're going to come up to 12 and 11. So we'll get pretty cool little groove. A little bit less reverb. We don't need that much. Just a splash. Hey Alec, what's up? How are you? Right, and you can kind of fill in little sort of notes and grooves sort of underneath that, right? As long as we have that main do ba da da, do da da da, do da 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 do ba da da, do da 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 do da da da. Right? Make it funky. Right, and so then we have a little groove, sort of a little vamp, where we're jamming on the C. Then we're essentially playing B flat, F, C, which is Ghostbusters, essentially. There's something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Busted, 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 busted makes me feel good. All right, so right, so you sort of have to visualize your chords. Right, in this case, so like a C7, just a C bar chord. You could just play a regular C major bar chord. The C7 will give it a little more funk. Right, your B flat, in this case, like a B flat 9, or B flat suspended 2, but it's really functioning more like a 9, even though we don't have the 7. Then your F, right, all kind of in this little box here, then sort of outlining our C minor blues scale. Right, so we have a little vamp that's kind of working like C7, then this little stabs from the C minor blues. Then our chords, B flat, F, C7. Then it drops back into that intro riff. All right, and that little synth lick that comes in there is all sort of C Mixolydian. Right. If we want to play it in the appropriate octave, we're up here. We won't be able to get the ultra high note that it bends up to at the end, but right, just come up here to the 20th fret. All right, so a little variation of that vamp there. It's a ton of compression on the guitar too. Like it's got like either a Ross compressor or a might even be a Dynacomp, but pretty squashed. In fact, just for fun, let's go get a compressor and throw it in the chain. Got one that should work pretty perfect for this. as a rule, we want compressors to be first in the chain, or very near. I'm going to put it first in line. Occasionally you want it later in line for a specific purpose. If you have a particular pedal that has a tendency to get out of control, either with output levels or certain frequencies, the compressor can help quite a bit later there. But if you really want to maximize the compression effect on your guitar, get over here. Really? That was weird. Plugging in this pedal caused the reverb pedal to power down. That's not a good sign. Alright. Yeah, that was the reverb pedal like powering down, power cycling. Which is really strange. It shouldn't do that. Kind of odd that we have all the gremlins and things haunting the gear the week after Halloween. Let's set our attack a little faster. Alright, so compared to without the compressor, with the compressor. Bring our ratio up a little bit. Slow the attack down a hair. Now, most compressors will have some combination of either like a ratio control at minimum and a level control, or some will have an attack control, some will have like this one, an attack and a release control, and so we can kind of control how quickly the compressor starts to squish down on our attack, and then how long it compresses before it sort of lets go. So especially as we start to increase the ratio, we can get really squished and splattery sounds when we set for it to clamp down aggressively very quickly. Really noticeable on the low notes. So this, we don't want it squishing too hard. to hold on to forever, so we're going to set the release to be pretty quick too. Because in this case, we're not really using it to add sustain to notes. You know, if we raise the release, make it very slow, the compressor will kind of keep them going. Well, if we set the release pretty fast, we'll start to fade off much more quickly. Hey Zampo, how are you? So I'm going to set them both to about noon. So these actually aren't humbuckers. These are P94s. These are P90s in a humbucker-sized mount. So these are just big single coils. As you can hear from the 60 cycle hum, especially if I turn just right. You're writing the gent in the chat. I mean, it made the whole guitar, especially compared to the humbuckers that were in it, the really hot humbuckers, and it made the whole guitar a lot more kind of crispy. Gave it a lot more sort of clarity and string-to-string definition. Alright, let's see, where are we? Right, so we have this little guitar lick in here. Couple different ways we can play it depending on whichever fingering you're more comfortable with, but we're working out of this C. You can either use the one on the 10th fret on the D string or the 5th fret on the G string. That one lets you use a single finger. But it's not quite as thick sounding as the one up here. Right, and so we're working the C, and then we have a couple little ghost notes, which is just the muted string, essentially. And I'm damping that out with my left hand. Then E, C. Then G, A, C. I'm sure somebody, there's got to be YouTube vids of someone just changing pots for different pickups. Gotta be. Yeah, that was a really awful joke. You should be embarrassed. Can you milk a fish? Right, or if we play it up here, we have to shift this finger back. We could always reach up to the E on the same string. But it doesn't feel like it has the right amount of separation. A cow nose, right? Jesus. Jeez. Just don't try to milk a... No. Nope, never mind. Nope, not doing it. Yeah, fish oil gets used for lots of stuff, but oil isn't milk. You can press a fish. Let's back it up a little bit. All right. Oh, so we can hear that. We grab the bass note before we do the high one. So let's see. Which finger would be best for that? That's what you come to this channel for, to think about things like fish milk. So yeah, I would bet because of that bass note there, that would make me think that it's probably down here in this area in the third position, right? Because then we can... And I mean, it may not look like I'm really doing that much with my fingers, but I'm pressing the C down here, then grabbing the bass note with my index, then the E with my pinky, then rolling the pinky back down to the C, then shifting up for the... If we do that up here, it's a little bit more involved. If you're not good at barring with your pinky, though, it might be easier to do up there. If you can't get that little roll there. Alright, then it sounded like we went back into the... Yeah, you already missed. We've been through Ghostbusters already. As well as bustin' makes me feel good. I ain't afraid of no ghost. So that's really not too bad. It's not too complicated as far as each individual part. Really, the big thing is kind of maintaining the rhythm in each little section and kind of keeping that kind of funky feel to all of it, right? Right, just kind of maintaining those little grooves. All right. What's next? As We Think We Is. Never played that one before. I like some Incubus stuff. They're a really hit or miss band for me. Didn't like them at all when they were new, actually. Not really anything from them, but they've kind of some of their stuff has kind of grown on me as time has gone on. All right, let's see. Let's go find the YouTube. Come on. Switch accounts. Anything that I can't stand to listen to now. I'm sure there's something. I mean, when I was really young, when I was, like seven or eight, I listened to a lot of country stuff. Even that stuff, though, I mean, it's a lot of it's super corny. But when I listen to it now, I hear kind of different things. Even if I think the songs are in many cases terrible. There are cool guitar parts and arrangements and stuff like that in a lot of it. You know. I mean, that's like the cheesiest song in the world. Not even good country, but cool guitar parts. Aqua. Yeah, I didn't really. The Aqua was not a band I had any exposure to until I was probably like 16 or 17. Definitely not something that I listen to frequently. Did you ask about Classical Gas like last week at some point? Ever like a band until you saw them live? Yeah, there was this really good punk band in Atlanta called the Burger Queens, who like they just released some absolutely banging demos. But then I went and saw them live, and I was like, man, these guys suck. They don't even know how to play freaking power chords. Somebody asked about Classical Gas recently, like within the last couple weeks. That's one for Mellow Mondays though, when we break out the classical guitar. Hmm. Trying to think of what disappointing shows that I've been to are. I've heard it. I can't quite remember how it goes though. You know, I've listened to most of their stuff at some point. I had a friend that was really into them, but trying to think though. Yeah, that was a good question, Alec. There's something. Who is it? There's something that's rolling around in my head, but I can't remember exactly what the show was. Never seen any of those live. Hmm. On a related note, a related concert note, since we're talking about concert memories, Did I ever tell you? I can't remember if I ever told you what the first official rock concert I ever went to was. So I wonder if anybody can guess if I give you a hint. So it was a '90s. They were kind of lumped into the like alternative grunge scene, but they had a little bit more of an industrial bent to them. They weren't really a full blown industrial band like Ministry or someone, but kind of I guess like grunge or '90s alt industrial crossover with a two-word name. And I saw them for free in Greensboro, North Carolina at a 4th of July concert. And my dad hated it because the singer would swear whenever he would whenever he would stop to talk between the songs. And my best friend at the time was supposed to go with me, and then his parents decided that he couldn't go because it was too evil. And it was a band. I mean, were pretty big during the '90s, relatively speaking. You know, they had at least 3 or 4 pretty big radio hits, if not more, and probably two really big albums, relatively speaking. That's one of their riffs with a ton of distortion, but I think it's in drop D though, or D standard maybe. I have no idea if they're still around. No idea. I haven't heard anything from them in at least like 15 years. But I don't know if you guys will have even heard of them. Let's see. Look at their discography, studio albums. The last studio album was 2001. They apparently are working on a new one to be announced. Man, this is a good guitar. I don't know why Brett wants it so much. Bert just wants it because it says BC Rich on it and it's pink, but still. This is another one of their riffs. Hold on, well, I guess we should apply distortion since it has a bunch of distortion on it. Turn the compressor off it. Yeah, ruined. Absolutely ruined. That was Stabbing Westward. Zomball knows him. That was the first like real rock show that I ever went to was Stabbing Westward in like 1997 or 98 maybe. I was like 13 or 14, maybe a year or two before I started playing guitar. Oh yeah, that's right. It was on the Spawn soundtrack. That would have been a good clue, except I didn't remember anything about that movie. They had a pretty cool sound though. They were kind of like if you made like a heavier Depeche Mode, you know, like you took that sort of moody electronic, like proto-industrial sound and made it more aggressive, you know, a lot more aggro. The lyrics a lot of times are pretty terrible, but it was the 90s. What you gonna do? Super angsty, but really cool sounds. The other one I had in my head that might have tripped some people up was the band Gravity Kills, but probably even fewer people remember them. But they were also kind of like industrial light and somewhat popular around the same time period. All right, let's look up this Incubus song. Hopefully it's in standard tuning, because I don't feel like changing guitars. Bum, 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 bum. Sounds like it's an E. Any guesses as to what scale this is, folks? As always. The trusty blues scale. Funk tends to be kind of a mashup of the major and minor blues scales, almost always. And when you combine the two, you get a very strong sort of Mixolydian sound as well, with the sort of combination of them, right? So if we have our minor blues and then our major blues, with the sort of conjunction of them, we can hear that Mixolydian sort of tone. So we tend to hear all three of those sort of worked in almost everything funky to some extent. Right, so there's just straight Mixolydian, but then we can start to add in those blues tones. Ba ba bow. Dude, Clarity, what is up? How are you? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that resub. That is amazing. All right, so we need a little bit of an overdriven tone. Your typo is bad on a key. What is he doing on the phone? You're back. Yeah, I hadn't noticed you hadn't spoken up in chat in several streams, a couple weeks now. But I'm doing pretty well. My sinuses drive me nuts. I don't know about you guys, but when the weather started to turn cold, like they went haywire. But aside from that, I'm okay. Having fun, getting funky tonight. All right, so let's try to dial in a little bit, like a little light overdrive. Man, that knob goes from like nothing to everything all at once. Just a little bit less high end. Get some mids in there. That'll probably work. Just a dash more. Yeah, I don't think I could take, as cool as the Pacific Northwest seems, I don't think I could take the weather. Like I hate it when it starts to get cold and rainy down here, which is like nothing compared to you guys. Grim coming in with the guitar nerd jokes. Style is a little bit too much low end, I think. Oh yeah, we need to update the title. Alright, update the title. Yeah, cold tends to make my joints hurt really bad, especially when it first starts turning really cold. Like all of my joints and muscles just start to ache like crazy, and then like this start to get colds and sinus stuff going on. I have like this tiny window at like the end of summer, but before ragweed season starts, where like my sinuses are relatively okay, my allergies aren't annoyed by anything. Alright, how many times do we play that little hit at the beginning? Ba-ba-da-da-ba-ba-da-da-bum. Ba-ba-da-da-ba-ba-dum. Hey Pan, what's up? How are you? That's what I was saying earlier. Incubus is really hot and cold, or hit or miss for me. I like some stuff a lot, and other stuff I don't care for much at all. Alright, that sounds like a minor ninth. That's kind of interesting. It sort of starts in the middle of a lick. It sounds almost like they were playing, like they were just sort of jamming and they just started recording or cut the thing right in the middle of the lick. Let's see if we can get that little tag. Always cool. That's cool. Have you been getting along? I meant to ask last time you popped in. Meant to ask if you've been getting along with your guitar. Alright, so Alright, so we got that little blues sound. The more you do it, the more you do it, and the more kind of dialed in you get your guitar, the quicker you'll be able to get through those string changes. Boom. Did you change your string gauge? Like if you kept the string gauge the same, and then you went in pairs like we talked about, doing these two strings, these two strings, these two strings as you replace them, then it should have pretty much stayed. You didn't take them all off before you changed them, right? Because if you take them all off, then everything gets all out of whack. I mean, if you compensated your tuning, to make up for the high E breaking, because once that high E breaks, obviously your bridge is going to knock everything out. Then you have to recompensate when you add that string back. All right, so let's see. All right, so there's like two guitars here. There's a slightly overdriven guitar that's playing our, and then there's a cleaner guitar that's playing our these little sort of like tritone Mixolydian patterns. What kind of buzz? Like a string buzz or an electronic buzz? String buzz. So yeah, there are a few things that can cause that. You can get string buzz. I mean, some string buzz is inevitable, like no matter what. Especially if you hit hard, like if you pick the string really hard, you're always going to get a little bit. But it can be caused either by having a little bit of forward bow, a little bit of hump in the neck, in which case you would need to take a little tension off the truss rod to sort of straighten the neck out or add a little bit of relief, depending on it's going to vary from guitar to guitar and in terms of like your own preferences as well and how you play. Or you could have a little bit of unevenness in the frets somewhere. The frets are not leveled properly, or you have a raised fret, something like that, and that can cause buzzes too. Does it do it on open strings, or does it just do it on fretted notes? And if it does it on fretted notes, does it only do it at specific frets? How do you know if it's bowed? It's good. It takes some time and experience to learn to see it, but basically, you can sight the neck from either end like this, and typically what you want to do, like I can see it without doing this, but you want to hold the strings down, say fret the string at the first fret, and then fret it, up around the 15th fret, something like that, and use that sort of fretted string as a straight edge, and you should be able to see if the neck has dip or if it has hump in it like that. And if it is humped up in the middle, then you have to reduce the tension on the neck from the truss rod. You have to loosen the truss rod slightly, and the strings will pull the neck up and either straighten it out or even induce a little bit of bow or a little bit of dip in it. The more dip, the more sort of, that's called relief. The more relief you have, the more clearance there's going to be between the string and the fingerboard in the middle of the neck especially. It doesn't really do a whole lot up towards the nut, but around the sort of middle of the neck you'll get a lot of clearance there. So people that pick really hard like more relief because the string is going to be oscillating with a wider path and more inclined to hit the frets and the fretboard. I tend to keep my necks pretty close to straight because I have a very light touch. I don't hit hard. And if you like playing more kind of shreddy stuff, you probably want a fairly straight neck, not too much relief. But if there's hump at all, then you're going to get buzz. Having encountered some of the techs at the Guitar Centers here in Atlanta, I would not take it to the Guitar Centers here in Atlanta. Like one of my last encounters with one was they had a bass I was interested in that really, really badly needed a truss rod adjustment, and they won't let you do it yourself, obviously. So they said, well, here, let's take it to our tech. He'll fix it for you. And we took it over to their tech, who was like a 55, 60-year-old man, and he's looking at this bass, and it was a bass that had 2 truss rods, which is really common on 5 and 6 string basses. And he looks at it and goes, "Oh man, this thing's got 2 truss rods. I've never seen that before." And I'm like, bruh, one, like, it's super common on basses since the 70s, was when you first start seeing it. And then Rickenbacker's done it forever. So what do you mean you've never seen 2 truss rods before? And then I spent 30 minutes standing there watching the dude go through like every wrench in his drawer and going like, no, that one ain't right. No, and then go back and pick up one he'd already picked up and try to get it in there like, no, I don't think that's it. No, that one ain't right. And I'm like, no, okay, that's fine. Just put it back on the wall. Just put it back on the wall. Yeah, I mean, it varies. Obviously, there are Guitar Centers, I'm sure, that have good repair people, but the ones around here definitely don't. I wish you could just bring it to me or give it to Alec and have him bring it to me, because I'd fix it for you for free or show you how. Because most of the stuff is super easy. If you have frets that aren't level, that gets a little more complicated. But adjusting the truss rod, setting your action, all that stuff, that's all super easy. All right, let's see what are we doing. Right. Alright, so we can sort of mix up. We can kind of combine the 2 guitar parts. They'll let you in, as far as I know, if you are actively planning on buying something. Like, as of, I don't know exactly what the policy is now, but a couple months ago, they could only have, I think, 2 customers in the store at once, and you had to be there specifically to buy something, like to either try out a guitar to buy or to be buying accessories or this, that, or the other. But I don't think you can just go in and wander around and you know, play whatever now. But some buzz again with low action and especially with lighter strings, some buzz is just inevitable. As long as it doesn't come through your amp, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, like this guitar has plenty of buzz, especially higher up when you start hitting really hard. Right. So one guitar, the distorted guitar, is playing this kind of da 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 da. Right. So minor third to major third. They're kind of hitting this little seventh chord stab. Ow. Right, and kind of playing this little sort of funky groove. Right, and then the clean guitar is playing sort of these little punctuations in between. So after our right, this little sort of Mixolydian tritone lick. I don't know if he plays. Does he use hybrid picking at all, or does he just pick everything? Because my inclination, especially for that leg, is to hybrid pick it instead of trying to just pluck everything. So then a little variation. Right, and this is a tritone here. This is the 7th fret and the 9th fret. Right, and then this little leg is straight Mixolydian. 7, 6, 7, 9. Right, so we have a cleaner guitar once the vocals start. So let's change back to clean sound. Speed our attack up a little bit. It sounds like we have a little moving octave pattern that comes in underneath the vocals. That's kind of moving around this like little 7th fret bar here. rise down here. Bop, boom, bum, bum, bum. No, we don't bring that whole shape up there. I think we just leave it over the E. There was a window. There were like, you know, 4 or 5 years maybe where this stuff was kind of in vogue. There were several bands around Atlanta like Groove Stain and oh, what was the name of that other one? Ah, shoot, I can't think of their name. There's another band that was like really, really, really popular, doing similar kinds of stuff. What was their name? Man, that's gonna bug me. I can kind of hear their big song too in my head. Boom. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, he's definitely playing it down here. Dun, dun, bucka, ticka, 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 dun. Is it dropping that octave on top of a D bass note? Alright, so we got this little kind of breakdown. All right, so then we get these little stabs. Right, so this is a C sharp minor 7. Then it sounds like a D major 7 for the first one. It sounds like it changes a little bit for the second one. So that's like a minor 7 flat 5. It sounds like it goes up to like an E minor 7 flat 5. Ba, 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 ba. Da, 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 da. They would still work some stuff in, like later on. They would work in a little more complicated time signatures and things like that than you would hear in most pop bands. But yeah, definitely got a little more formulaic. So now we're back into sort of this little funky groove type section, which is back into that sort of hybrid major minor blues mixolydian kind of sound. Slightly different than the first time. Alright, that little build up to it too. Da, 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 da. It's just B, D, B, D, B, D. Alright, then back into so da 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 da. So the big thing to kind of hit there are these little punctuations of like this E9, which is 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, starting on the A string. He's sort of sliding in and out of it, like a half step below. Right, then we have these little pentatonic licks. Right, then the other guitar is still playing these little tritones in between. Right, then we get back into this little. Right, so we're kind of holding on this B bar here. Bop, bop, bop. right? And sort of fixing this little spot and emphasizing different octaves to sort of bring out the different chord tones. Right, and this is back to that. Right, then those little stabs again. C sharp minor 7, ba-da, 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 ba, E minor 7 flat 5, ba-da, 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 then da 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 da. Ba-da-da-bop, 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 boom. Back into the little groove. All right, so we got like a C sharp minor 7. Ba, 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 ba. Then up to like an E major 7. Right, and then we start to get the lead guitar coming in on top of that. Using the sort of the C sharp minor scale predominantly. Turn the compressor off. A little more gain. And then it goes back into the E groove. So our little solo. So our solo is basically straight up C sharp minor scale, right? We can start off playing, right? It doesn't really change to anything outside of that scale until the very end when we get this G natural. So we can kind of groove. Then we get back into the funk. Like straight back into it. So we have the kind of the big hit B, D. Boom, ba, ba, da. Rhythm section gets bigger, guitar part's still the same. Right, and this is like the intro lick again. It's pretty cool, like little intricate little parts kind of weaving in and out of each other that create sort of a bigger effect. Like between all the little horn hits. Like the little second guitar parts kind of coming in and out. Oh, it's not too bad. You just have to sit down and work out like each little fragment, right? And get the rhythm really, really, really specific for each little fragment. Then it just kind of loops them over. You know, it's all pretty much just kind of blues scale sort of stuff. You just got to work out like exactly like, okay, well, this fragment starts with right, then the whole fragment loops over again. Right, then the other fragment, the other guitar plays this fragment that goes. You know, and then that interweaves with the other one. But not crazy. crazy. It's definitely more complex than most stuff you hear on the radio, though. But once you sort of figure out, like, okay, it's all in these little box shapes, it's all using these little sort of scale fragments, not too bad. Wish the solo were longer, though. That song definitely needs a longer solo. Some more jamming. All right, we're coming up on 3 hours. Anybody got anything else? Any, like, one last tune? Or any last questions? Any other stuff you want to talk about for a few minutes? Anything else in Discord? Nothing else new in Discord yet. Yeah, no worries. We'll probably, unless somebody hits us with something else real quick, we're probably going to wrap it up in a couple minutes. You like King Tubby? Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff. Some of it is really rough. Like, some of it, like Lee Scratch Perry in particular, like, some of his stuff is really, really, really raw. And sometimes that's really cool, and other times it's kind of hard to listen to. The older stuff, actually, oddly enough, the older stuff is not as bad as some of the more recent stuff. Yeah, a lot of those vintage recordings from Jamaica are brutal. Like, people complain about trying to listen to like old folk music in like blues recordings and stuff, but dude, some of that stuff is ridiculous. He also tends to have, especially as he got older, in particular, he tended to have like a complete disregard for the concept of key, whether or not he like couldn't hear it anymore or just was like too high to care. You kind of never knew if he was going to be anywhere close to being in tune with the song, like in key with the song. Well, really, almost all of those, all of the Caribbean nations of, of any size have pretty interesting musical histories. I think Jamaica has largely been, maybe next to Cuba, as the most successful in exporting it. I think the first song I ever heard, or like consciously heard, that people called reggae was "Mr. Boombastic" by Shaggy, which in retrospect is not really reggae at all, but has sort of reggae cues in it. And at the time, the radio DJs and whatnot called it reggae, but then I heard tons of Bob Marley, which, some of it's good, but I much prefer Gregory Isaacs to Bob Marley. And Toots and the Maytals. In fact, I would probably say, on the balance, Toots and the Maytals are the goats. like a lot of bands of the era. Uh, it wasn't exactly reggae. It was kind of its own thing. Good, bad, or otherwise. What was it, man? Why did everybody have to do that back then? Like late 70s to mid 80s, it seemed like, especially all the British bands suddenly had to start working reggae into everything. Yeah, pretty much the same time, and then all the tons of the new wave bands. Then all of a sudden, we're slipping in little kind of like faux reggae things into their music, little chord stabs and whatnot. A little more space there. All right. I think it's time to wrap it up. In about 3 hours. Getting hungry. Things are feeling slow. So, what do we got? We've got Metal Monday coming up this Monday, I think. Kind of starting to lose track of which day we're on. I'm gonna coming up with some more Mondays too. We need to do. I think we'll do a Metal Monday, and then we'll go back and do a Music Theory Monday the week after, since we haven't done one of those in a while. We need some more. I'm gonna start coming up with some more day themes, some more random themes, and mix stuff up more. Feeling a little too predictable. So maybe you should be predictable for scheduling purposes and stuff. I don't know. But anyways, thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks for making requests and asking questions and what have you. If you haven't hit the follow button, hit the follow button. Oh yeah, and thanks to Clarity for resubscribing. That's amazing. Really appreciate that. But if you haven't followed, hit the follow button. If you haven't checked out the socials, check out the YouTube and the Instagram and the Twitter and what have you. The YouTube has a lot of the old VODs on it now, and we'll eventually have some original content too. But the Instagram has various guitar pictures, and the Twitter has tweets, that pretty much just say, "Hey, come check out the stream." But anyway, it's a thing to follow. Need some more Twitter followers so I can be important, so I can be an influencer of some kind. Also, if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord, because that's the place to chat all week long about guitar and music stuff and make requests for the stream. And I will see y'all Monday at 9. See you, Pan.